Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today, Merry Christmas for those of you that celebrate. Guys, today we're going to have a little bit more of a fun video for you guys, as I'm going to be going through. I posted a couple of days ago. That's why you guys got to check. If you are not subscribed to the channel, don't check the community tab. I post some questions every once in a while, and I'm going to be doing this more as we go into the new year. I asked you guys for some mock trades. As we get closer and closer to the trade deadline, I'll probably be doing that more often, and I'm going to be answering some of your guys' mock trades. And, we didn't get too much action, so we are going to have to go into the comments. But, guys, make sure to check that out, because I am going to be answering some of these guys. So the first one comes in from Mental Warfare, and he's got a Sabres logo in his profile, which makes me think he's probably a Sabres fan. And he said, Shesty to the Sabres for a 4th round pick. Now, I think Rangers fans will say, what? I think he's messing around. But maybe a 4th overall pick. Maybe the Rangers fans would be more willing to do that right now. But with that said, I think they still have the belief in Shesterkin and what he can do for that team. So I think they'd rather keep him than trade him for a 4th overall pick or a 4th round pick. And I hope it's not the second one there. And that is from Mental Warfare. Urban Champ 89. A huge shout out to you. You're always commenting on my videos. You're a hustler, man. I really appreciate it. So he said, Horvat to Minnesota for Dumba, Beckman, and a 2nd rounder. And that's kind of interesting because Bo Horvat going to Minnesota isn't necessarily the team we're thinking of for Horvat, right? A lot of people have said he's from Southern Canada, which is pretty close to Detroit. I think he's 90 minutes away from Detroit. So there's some question about that. He played in London in the OHL, and we'll get to that later. So this is kind of interesting. Usually the ties are with Brock Besser, who played, I think, at North Dakota, but is from that Minnesota area. So kind of interesting to see that. Dumba, Beckman, and a 2nd rounder. So I do expect Dumba to get traded. I don't know if Beckman's a good enough prospect, but I think that there is something to be said there. And that 2nd rounder, if it's a conditional pick, like let's say it's a 2nd rounder, right? And then if he re-signs in Minnesota past this season and is no longer a rental, well, then maybe Vancouver gets a 1st round pick from Minnesota, right? Or Vancouver, if Minnesota makes the playoffs this year, that becomes a 1st round pick or something like that. I like where you're going with that. I do appreciate that. We just talked about Horvat in one of my videos. Make sure to go check out that. We also talked about this next one here from Urban Champ. Ryan O'Reilly for a 2nd rounder, a 3rd rounder, and a 2nd next year to Minnesota. So he's obviously going from Minnesota here. And he said, I doubt either happens because they probably want more for either player, but I'm always hoping. So, listen, I love when you guys give your thoughts, and I like the idea for Minnesota going for it this year. They already got Ryan Reeves. They brought him into the fold to get a little bit more edgy. You bring in a guy like Horvat and O'Reilly. I mean, this would be a stacked Minnesota Wild team. And I think the thing is they kind of lack that center depth still. And that's kind of been their kryptonite. So if there's a way they could find a way to kind of build up that center core, it's still very young with guys like Rossi and, Joe Eriksson Ek is a very good center. But it seems like they're just still lacking in that department. I think that you had guys like Horvat or O'Reilly. Those are some pretty key additions. So we got, of course, shout out to Ali Desh. Listen, Urban Champ 89 is right up there here in the community at Goal Line Hockey, but Ali Desh has been a warrior. He's been with me for at least 2 years now, commenting. He is a grinder. So shout out to Ali Desh. And he left his pick, and we are talking about Chychrun, who we've also talked about recently on the channel. He said, Chychrun to any team for their next 3 years of 1st round picks. Their best player, their best 2 prospects, and 13 conditional 7th round picks. Conditions for every juice box Chychrun drinks on a Sunday morning. The Coyotes get 1 7th round pick to a maximum of 13. Now, the only problem with this Ali Desh is if you're doing this on NHL GM mode, there's only so many slots of assets you could put in there. I don't know if you could fit 13 7th round picks. And I hate to break it to you, Ali Dash, that's probably the only way that this trade ever goes through, is it would have to be an NHL, be a GM mode. No, I think this is hysterical. Yeah, he always come up with like some of the funniest, yet I don't know where this comes from. Only in Ali Dash's mind does this make any sense or work, but obviously shout out to him. Because I'm Bill Armstrong, and that seems like a reasonable asking price for a top 4 defenseman who misses more games than he plays. So, of course, there you go. He's kind of poking fun at the egregious asking price of the Arizona Coyotes. I get where he's going there. So, obviously, shout out to Ali Dash. He knows I'm just messing with him, but he is awesome. He actually gave us another comment as well. He said, Besser or Horvat to the Isles for Wahlstrom and a first. Ooh, okay. I saw someone else suggest that a couple days ago somewhere. I have no idea what Vancouver is looking for in a Besser or Horvat trade. Okay, so the only problem with this, Ali Dash, is Besser might be going for only a 2nd or 3rd round pick. It sounds like it's more of a cap dump for the Canucks than it is to necessarily want to keep him. And the thing is, if they do trade Besser, chances are they will try to give more money to Horvat. Unless it's kind of water under the bridge and Horvat just does not wish to stay in Vancouver or talk discussion in terms of a new extension until the end of the season, which Vancouver can't really afford at this point. I think that one of them will go and the other one will stay. But again, that also depends on what happens with Horvat here, because if Horvat doesn't end up signing anyway, maybe they should just keep Besser, right? I think that's kind of the holdup right now with that whole situation. So they could get a 2nd or 3rd round pick for Besser and Horvat. So apparently the Canucks want a top 6 center, I guess a top 4 prospect defenseman, and a good draft pick, whether that's a 1st or 2nd round pick. So you kind of have that. You just need the defenseman, and there's been some rumors that maybe an Alexander Bolduc or a Bodie Wild or a Cade Odelius, who is a young Islanders defenseman coming up, playing in the World Junior Championships right now. Those are the kind of guys that I think Vancouver would be interested in. So obviously, shout out to Ali Dash for giving us some mock trades. Obviously, I appreciate that. We're going to go over a couple of other ones here that I saw just in the regular comments, but those guys got the priority because they went into the community tab, so I'm giving them the priority. So let's take a look here. Let's see. Let's take a look. Apologize, guys. Let's take a look. Okay, so this is from Urban Champ 89 again. Shout out to you. He said, it's crazy to me the situation with Besser, Oliver Ekman-Larsson to Buffalo actually sounds good. For Buffalo, yeah, see, so kind of agreeing with me there. I did say that. With their youth, not a bad situation. Besser would fit really well in Minnesota, kind of pointing to what he said earlier. But I'm curious to see how the call-up of Sammy Walker plays out before they make a splash trade. Boldy is playing better with him there, and the Wild have found their identity and are winning since getting Ryan Reeves, which I mentioned earlier. So yeah, that is a really good idea there. I think that we're looking at a situation right now where the NHL wants to kind of, the problem is a lot of teams have been complaining that there isn't enough trade action. And I think there's only so much you could really do with that. But I think it's one of those things that, if you're really being honest, I think that, with the Oliver Ekman-Larsson situation, that's not going to get kind of figured out till next summer. In Vancouver in particular, because if they buy him out, that's likely what's going to happen. And again, kind of like somebody else said here in the comments, it's counterproductive to trade Oliver Ekman-Larsson for your own 2 first-round picks, right? Because that's what it might cost to get rid of that contract for another team to ultimately buy him out. So it just seems like one of those things where it's just not really going to work out the way they want. I think ideally what you're looking at is just a rebuilding of that blue line for the Canucks. I've talked about them a lot recently, but it's kind of hard not to talk about them because there's just so much going on there. I think Oliver Ekman-Larsson gets bought out next summer. Tyler Myers gets paid after July 1st when he gets his final big signing bonus, and that's a huge amount of his salary. And I think his salary goes down significantly to like $1 million per season after July 1st this year. So until that happens, teams are going to kind of stay away from that Tyler Myers contract. This is also from Urban Champ. Dumba and Beckman in a pick, or Chychrun for Horvat. Imagine Chychrun straight up for Horvat. How interesting would that be? I don't see that happening, but it's definitely something that you want to talk about seeing a big move. I think that would be kind of interesting. This is from Mario Vaccarella. Huge shout out to you because you've been here on the channel posting a decent amount. I think you're an Isles fan. I see that the Islanders are the best fit for Horvat. They might even be able to take Besser too in a huge trade if they can be salary cap compliant. And see, that's the problem, right? If the Islanders do make a trade like that, forget about re-signing Scott Mayfield this summer, which I think some Islanders fans would be okay with. The Islanders have to get a new backup other than Varlamov. I don't think Varlamov's going to stay for less than what he's making, or he decides to retire, right? I don't know what's going to happen there. So those two things are gone. The only other problem is, since this would be like that Palmieri and Parise acquisition in which the jury is still out, on which the jury is still out on the success or failure of it, it might also be a questionable factor as per who the Vancouver Canucks get in return depends on multiple factors which are up in the air. Like you're saying, yeah, exactly. They'd have to take salary back, and it might have to be one of those contracts, right? Might have to be a Mayfield or a Palmieri, right? They'd have to take money back. And that might end up becoming, it might be a Beauvillier. It's going to end up being one of those guys because the Islanders don't have the cap flexibility, so they have to do something there. And I think that's ultimately what's going to happen. This is another one here from Shafin Zam. Shout out to you. He had 2 comments. He said, the Isles should be in on one of these guys. Horvat, while not a top-line winger, is a really good player. Besser would be a good fit on Long Island. He actually said it correctly. Not in Long Island, on Long Island. So obviously he knows what he's talking about there. And he also gave a proposal for a trade. He said, trade is Wally and a first for Besser. I don't think I'd be willing to do that. I understand the appeal to Besser. He has had some pretty good seasons. He just hasn't been healthy. And I think what you already have in Palmieri, which is a guy that if he's in the lineup can score goals, is very good, but he's injured a lot. And it's kind of like you're just getting another Palms. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of the idea of bringing in Besser, especially at the cost of Wally, because I think straight up, 1-for-1, I think I'd rather have Wahlstrom than Besser right now. So, obviously, thank you for the comment. I'm not trying to criticize you. I'm just giving you my thought on what I think this is. And somebody's going to meme me for saying my thought the way I say it because I'm from New York and you guys like to make fun of me. So this is from Cash McGregor, another little comment here. I think the Canucks want to free up cap space to sign Kuzmenko, so I would think they would want draft picks. And I think that is a very good point, right? Especially in Vancouver. Not only are they trying to free up money for Horvat, but even if that doesn't work out the way they'd like in terms of signing him long-term, they still have Andrei Kuzmenko, who signed a 1-year deal last summer, and they're projecting him to kind of take Besser's spot as a top 6 scoring winger. So if that's the case, you got to make room for Kuzmenko, who's coming off of his $1 million contract this year. He's going to ask for a pay raise next summer. So it's going to be a really important spot there. I'm kind of waiting to see what happens, but I think it's going to be kind of interesting what happens with Vancouver, because that seems to be the team everybody's talking about. And I think that we're starting to hear some stuff out of Chicago. You know, the Chicago Blackhawks, apparently the Ottawa Senators had reached out and had been linked to Seth Jones. How crazy would that be, right? They did all that work to bring in Seth Jones and Caleb to play in Chicago, and then just 2 or 3 years in, all of a sudden Seth Jones ends up in Ottawa. That would be kind of interesting. You know, obviously the Vancouver Canucks, who we've talked about ad infinitum. The Minnesota Wild are kind of interesting too. You know, I could see them adding a big center. I think it's going to be difficult to swing a trade in the division with a team like the St. Louis Blues for O'Reilly, but you know, Horvat, Besser, those are guys that could be in the running there. I want to see what happens in Ottawa for their defense. I know they really want to add another defenseman to that group to maybe go for the playoff push. They don't need draft picks. They don't need any more prospects. They've got a ton of those already. So maybe we see them kind of packaging up somebody to try and bring in a big defenseman, and they've got the cap space; they can do that. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with some of these teams ahead of the deadline. I've given up hope on the Islanders doing anything. They just are not allowed to have a top 6 player added. They can bring in Parises and Palmieri's all they want. You need that next level guy. You need a Patrick Kane. You need a Horvat. I mean, I'd love to say Besser would be the solution, but he's no different than some of those other guys. And even Horvat, I get scared because he's having a career season. He's never put up numbers like this, and there's rumors on the open market he could get potentially $9 million per season. And I kind of worry about the Islanders there. And to be honest, I don't think Lou would even do that. I don't think Lou would be willing to give up $9 million per season to a guy like Bo Horvat. So that's it for today's video, guys. Obviously, you know, Merry Christmas to everybody. This is kind of a special video. I'm hoping to get to 3,000 subscribers here by the end of the year. So we have 7 subscribers to get to that 3,000 mark, guys. So if you are not subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You could keep up with our community posts. I'm going to start doing live streams going into this year. I've been saying that for a while, but I really want to do that this year. So I'm hoping to get some live stream stuff done. I just had to order another $3,000 computer, so I should be able to stream on that. If not, we're going to have some big problems there. I'm trying to set up the lighting, the cameras, and just figure out how I want to do the live streaming. I've looked at a couple different things, and I'm trying to figure out how feasible it really is. I've looked at Streamlabs. I really like them. I actually, again, quick plug to that for the holidays. Maybe some of that extra cash you get from your family members. Check out Goal Line Hockey's Streamlabs shop, which is down in the description down below. We've got a ton of merchandise, sweatshirts, hats, which are actually a couple different colors. We got some variety there. We have some beanies in there as well. So if you guys want to check that out, make sure to do that as well and help us here at Goal Line Hockey. Guys, it's been another incredible year here with you guys. Obviously, spend some time with your family if you can. If not, that's okay. We are here at Goal Line Hockey to keep you entertained. And I hope I give you guys that entertainment every day. Guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, so much for the support. And I will see you guys next time. And enjoy your Merry Christmas.